Hey guys, welcome to Pistons Talk Podcast post-game show. Hope you guys are having a great Monday evening, night. It's 10 o'clock at night as I'm recording this. I don't even know why I said evening. But let's get into this post-game podcast. Pistons took on the Sacramento Kings tonight. No Tobias Harris for the Detroit Pistons. He was the only player that did not play tonight. And he was definitely missed, I would say, just in terms of rebounding the basketball. We'll get into the rebounding disadvantage tonight for the Pistons. But we'll get into these quarter notes, kind of, review this game. And after that, I will open up to the podcast and the show if you're watching live on YouTube. 2 questions and comments from you guys that are watching live. And we'll wrap it up from there. So, like I mentioned a little while ago, no Tobias. This was a game where Tim Hardaway started off really hot, had 11 points in the first quarter. And this was a game that was going back and forth in the first. Neither team really played any defense. And I always felt like this game was going to be a high scoring game. Whoever made more shots was going to win this basketball game at the end of the day. But one thing that was really apparent from the Sacramento Kings was the out rebounding the Detroit Pistons. So just in the first quarter alone, you guys, Sacramento had 17 rebounds to the Detroit Pistons 5. That's a big disadvantage with the Detroit Pistons. If we just look at the rebounding numbers as a whole, Sacramento had 50 and 18 offensive rebounds, which is a lot. But Pistons still kind of keep the first quarter competitive. 38-37 was the score after 12 minutes of action. Going into the second quarter, Sir Thompson really picked up the scoring load. Obviously, no Tobias Harris tonight, so he was forced to play power forward and kind of play that Tobias role. The bench unit, I felt like the bench unit tonight was a big reason why they were able to get the lead that they had. Believe it or not, the Pistons were up 18 points at one time in this game, and it was in the second quarter. It was Marcus Sasser, who I thought in a very limited action tonight really showed that he's developing and he's growing as a player. Malik Beasley early on was hitting the shots. Stu was banging down low, getting just hustle points. And the Sacramento Kings defense wasn't really, closing out on the Pistons shooters from the perimeter. And, the Pistons bench unit, I thought, was a big reason why they had that 18-point lead. Now, what happened is the starters come in. The offense was very predictable. And that once 18-point lead halfway through the second quarter got dwindled down to a 10-point lead because the starters just weren't bringing the same juice that the bench unit and the reserve unit was bringing. And Pistons still had a 10-point lead going into the half, 72-62, but being up almost 18 points, and when your starting unit comes in, it looked really just sloppy. There was a lot of forced shots. The ball movement wasn't as crisp as I thought it could be with the second unit, but they still go with a 10-point lead going into halftime. Now, I thought the third and the fourth quarter is what basically lost them that game. They came out very sluggish. Duren got into foul trouble. He had 4 fouls in the fourth quarter. Sar Thompson also had 4 fouls in the fourth quarter. So Duren was basically on the bench for majority of the second half. We really didn't see Jalen Duren come in until like the fourth quarter because of foul trouble. Cade started getting into it in the second half, scoring wise. I would say he finished with 35 points tonight, looked much better. But Zach LaVine just started heating up. He had 13 points in the third quarter alone, you guys. And the Kings take a lead 97-94 to end the third quarter. Coming out, or I should say, going into the fourth quarter, Zach LaVine was still hot. And he just could not be stopped. Just the 3-pointers that he was making, it really didn't matter who he put on him. That trio of LaVine, DeRozan and Sabonis really killed the Pistons tonight. They combined for over 90 points tonight. Now, Cade tried to match the scoring, and it was pretty back and forth. They did get defensive stops, and it was a 5-point game at one point, but they just couldn't capitalize um, on the defensive stops that they made to get back into this game. There was just way too many terrible possessions, in my personal opinion, in the fourth quarter. I mean, giving up 18 offensive rebounds and 25 second chance points, that's going to be very hard to beat a team that has high octane scorers like a Zach LaVine and like a DeMar DeRozan. Two of the best just mid-range scorers. Like we've seen Zach LaVine just take over basketball games before. We've seen him drop over 50 points last season against the Detroit Pistons. I think he had over 40 tonight. And I mentioned this last game against the Toronto Raptors, you guys. The rebounding is concerning because they're just getting out hustled and they're allowing teams to get second chance points and offensive rebounds. Now, I know Tobias Harris has been out, and he is a very big part of this team. And you're seeing just his impact alone of rebounding in defense and not having to have Asar play power forward because Tobias Harris isn't out there. Just the whole game plan. Even JB said it in his press conference after the game that they didn't execute the game plan. It was a really just bad game effort wise defensively. And they really couldn't get into the transition game like they like to play. And Sacramento took full advantage of that. But I do want to open up the show to questions and comments with you guys. Don't want to keep this podcast too long. We'll try to keep it under 20 minutes if we can. We got win 25. I can't believe they scored 37 in the first quarter. Just gave 38 up as well. Yeah, Sacramento is just a very high octane offense, especially when LaVine is feeling it. Like they just beat the Cleveland Cavaliers, who's the number one seed in the Eastern Conference. And their trio scored 90 points. They scored 90 points again against the Detroit Pistons. Honestly think like the Kings are a beatable team, and I thought the second unit in the second quarter really showed you how you can beat the Sacramento Kings of executing, playing solid defense, rotating, communicating, pushing the pace. But they went away from that. Like I didn't really understand why Ron and Marcus Astor didn't play more minutes because I felt like they really surged the game in the second quarter. And once the starters came back in, that we didn't have that same type of energy. You got another comment from Win 25. I'm starting to really worry about this team's defense. I'm not too worried about the team's defense. I would say I think it's more of a thing where like you're starting to see the impact of what Tobias Harris brings night in and night out. And when Tobias is in the game and he's playing more of that forward position and Asar can play more at that small forward position. Tobias covers a lot of ground for this team, and I think you're just seeing just what he does for this basketball team. Now, the rebounding and the defense has been very eye-opening these past two games. I will agree with you with that. It is worrying because you don't want to go into the playoffs with these type of performances and this type of effort because you don't want to play the New York Knicks and kind of have this type of effort, in my opinion, because you want to end the season on a high note, having confidence and playing your best brand of basketball. And I think over these last 5 games, they've slipped a lot. And I think we can kind of attribute that to, one, they haven't been healthy in the month of April. I think we can agree there. And two, you have a player in Cade that just missed 2 weeks of action, and he's trying to shake the rust off. And you're playing some pretty good teams. Like, I don't know why I said Toronto earlier. I meant Memphis. Memphis is a good team. Sacramento is, still battling for a 10 seed, but they're still a good team. They have good NBA players. really good NBA players for that matter. But I wouldn't really read too much into like the team's defense. It's just been like a thing where um, they aren't 100% healthy. But that's just my opinion on it. You guys may have a different opinion of what you're watching, what you're seeing from this current Detroit Pistons team very late in April as this season is winding down. I have a comment from Dolly. I hope JB starts doubling in the playoffs. I don't get it. Why leave Levine open 7 times in a row when Valanciunas is playing the 5? Honestly, like if you go back and watch that game, like they wanted to put Asar on Levine, and it was so many things where like like the first shot in the fourth when he hit a pretty contested three. I was like, he's just in the groove. But to your point, Dolly, I think a big reason why they maybe didn't double a Zach Levine is because they still have a DeRozan, they still have a Sabonis. They can hurt you in other ways. It's not that they didn't want to. It's just that team has so many offensive weapons. It's you just kind of have to play your best defense, and obviously Zach Levine is just a better offensive player than the type of defense that we're showing the Kings tonight. We have a question from Maneuvers. Is Levine on your Piston killer note list? 4 out of 5 losses heading into the playoffs is concerning. Backing into the playoffs rarely turns out well. Yeah, he's the top of my list of Pistons killers maneuvers. I know I mentioned maybe last podcast or a couple podcasts, maybe last week, that I do have a list of Pistons killers in my phone. Zach Levine's been in there for quite some time. It just seems like every time he plays an LCA, he shows out. And I know a lot of Pistons fans are very vocal about when they almost traded for him last season when Troy Weaver was still here. I don't know if that has to factor into anything, but he's just been a really good player for a majority of his career. But to answer your second question, uh, you know, losing 4 of your 5 last games is concerning. You're 100% right, maneuvers. It is. It really is. Um, I think these next 3 games are going to be really crucial. They have a couple days off before they do have to play the New York Knicks. I expect them to come out very aggressive and hungry uh, to win that game because you don't want to go into the playoffs, losing these next 3 games because you don't want to lose confidence in that way. I know Cade said in their press game conference that they're hungry and they're still very confident, but winning basketball games going into the playoffs, I think as a player, it's an ego boost at the end of the day. Like you don't want to lose your last 4 games of the season. And then try to go to the playoffs and just say, yeah, it's a clean slate. Like you want to finish this season off as strong as you can, and I think winning these next 3 games is very crucial for this team. Can they go 3-0? I think they can if they play their best brand of basketball. And then we're gonna have to wait and see like what Tobias Harris availability is because he's been out for the last couple of games. I know he came back, injured himself, playing a half of basketball last week, but I don't really know how serious that Achilles tendinopathy personally is. Hopefully, it's nothing serious, and he's good to go. Whether it's these last couple of games to finish off the season, or hopefully he's good to go in the playoffs. Whoever the Pistons play in the first round. Shift God, it's head scratching, but they look the same way next game. I might start being concerned. The defense I can understand from you guys where we've seen this team at its peak when they're competing for a full 48 defensively, what it looks like. Nights like tonight, I think it should concern you because it should concern you the way that they're defending because we know they're capable of playing good defense. And you saw that in a very short spurt in the second quarter where they were playing pretty good defense and pushing the pace and scoring the basketball, moving the basketball. But I wouldn't really hit the panic button yet. But if they finish off the season 0-3 going into the playoffs, then it's just like, yeah, like you want to you want to have conversations about this team possibly, winning a playoff game or possibly upsetting a New York Knicks in the first round. But you have to focus on the games in front of you right now. You got to focus on New York and Milwaukee these last two games and finish your season off on a high note, in my personal opinion. Mr. Longitude, I was screaming at my TV trying to get Stu to close out and Levine. Asar and Ron were doing it. We're doing everything they could to get over those screens. Yeah, it's like I know what play you're talking about in the fourth. Like Stu was he didn't know if he wanted to guard Sabonis or should I go close out on Levine? He was kind of late to closing out on Zach Levine in that fourth quarter. To your point, I thought Ron did a really good job defensively on DeMar, late in the fourth. Same with Asar. Asar was trying to switch to get himself onto Levine and DeMar DeRozan very late in that fourth quarter. Like they made the stops in the fourth. It was only a 5-point game, but it really opened up when they were just not, closing out on the 3-point line and the perimeter hard enough because a lot of those threes that Zach was hitting, um, it was kind of soft defense to the Pistons standards. And a player like that we know he doesn't really need a whole lot of time to get a shot off. You should have been on him the entire possession, making sure that he's not getting a clean look shooting a three. Because given just like how he had his third quarter, scoring 13 points and then heating up even more in the fourth, I think the writing was kind of on the wall for that game. Like I said in the third, I was like, I don't think they're going to win it if Zach keeps hitting shots like this, and that's exactly what happened. Stupid Tim Hardaway Jr. 3 attempt off a steal, seconds into the shot clock when it was close. We can't be having that low IQ. That was one play I looked at it and I said to myself as well, bad possession. Ryan gets a steal. It's a transition opportunity. A trailing Tim Hardaway Jr. does shoot a three. I thought if they could have that possession over again, maybe they could slow it down and play in the half court more. But you're right. When a game is that close, you can't be trying to play hero ball and having a possession like that. I agree. I wasn't a fan of that play, but I'm not just gonna nitpick one play. I thought the second half was probably one of their I would say probably one of their worst defensive quarters or defensive half I've seen in quite some time. But at the end of the day, um, I think this is a team that has made really big strides as this season has gone on from like October to April. But I think down the stretch, they haven't been 100% healthy, but it should be next minute mentality, and you should be able to at least keep it competitive with the Sacramento Kings team. Doesn't play a whole lot of defense. Um, Lamiko says, "What up, though? Their defense tonight was blah." Yeah, it really was, especially in the second half coming out of halftime. I wasn't really too impressed with it. I thought they came out really slow. The communication multiple times, guys didn't really know who to guard. They didn't know how to who was supposed to switch on to DeMar at times and Levine. Um, Stu was doing his best trying to bang down low with the Sabonis and Jonas Valanciunas, but collectively as a team, I thought in the second half we didn't get the same effort that we got in the second quarter. I thought the second quarter's defense was pretty good. I thought the second unit really brought the energy with Ron and Sass and Stu and those guys just bringing the energy. But I agree. I definitely agree that the defense tonight wasn't what we're kind of grown accustomed to this season. I'll do one more comment from Shift God, and then we'll wrap up this podcast. See you guys on Thursday after the Pistons next game. But Shift God asked the question: you think we brought back Kate at the wrong time? No, I don't. I think my opinion on this shift is you wanted to bring Cade back to end the season because you didn't want him going into a first round series rusty. Like the Memphis game, he was really rusty. Tonight, I think scoring the basketball, he looked more comfortable. His percentages were pretty good. Obviously, I think he's still kind of adjusting with Dennis Schroeder in the backcourt with him. I don't know if that's going to be a long-term thing with JB, or that's just a thing where he has to play a solid power forward because Tobias has been out. But I think you want to bring Cade back in these final 4 games, just to get the rust off, get him in basketball shape, and gear him up for the NBA playoffs against the. It looks like we're going to be playing the New York Knicks. Kind of depends how we finish up the season, but I think it is very important to get him as much reps as possible and get him ready for our first round Eastern Conference playoff matchup that we will be having April 19th. So we'll have a little bit of time off, obviously, with the play-in tournament games. But I'm going to wrap this podcast up, you guys. We've been on for around 20 minutes. Pistons do lose this one tonight against the Sacramento Kings, 127-117. It is back-to-back losses against the Grizzlies and the Kings. They have an opportunity to get back into the win column against the New York Knicks on Slam Magazine nights. Should be fun if you guys are going to go out there. You get a Slam Magazine poster, and I know the Pistons kind of tease some T-shirts of Cade on a Slam cover. I don't know if they're going to be selling those T-shirts. Hope they do. They look pretty cool. But we will see you guys on Thursday, and we'll have content on this YouTube channel. If you guys are subscribed to the YouTube channel, up all the way up until Sunday, so you're not going to miss out on any Detroit Pistons content for the week. But as always, you guys, hope you guys have a great night. Go Pistons. Peace.